So if you've been subscribed to me for a while on this channel, you know that a long time ago, I used to do reaction videos. And you will also know that I didn't really enjoy doing those that much. But during that time, I watched one series in particular that I actually really liked, even though having to react in real time wasn't super fun for me. And that series was Animation versus Animator. Now, a little while back, I made a video talking about how I would never react to the recent Animator versus Animation 11, and that's still true. But for whatever reason, my old reaction video on the whole series is kind of popping off right now, and I still hadn't watched the new episode on my own time 4 months later, so I decided to give it a watch in my free time. And boy, am I glad I did. As usual, it was really damn good. I know that this channel has taken a pretty strong pivot into film review videos, but I don't see why I can't take a look at this little YouTube series. I mean, it holds its own cinematically, I think, so I feel like it's deserving of a true review video. So here I am, doing a review on Alan Becker's newest addition to his series. And by the way, I'm gonna approach this as someone who assumes everyone watching has seen the entire series at this point, so I won't be talking about anything before episode 11 too much, unless it's relevant to the review here. So let's dive right into talking about Animation versus Animator 11. So just in case you are new here, I'll give you a very brief idea of what this series is like. This is an animated series where all characters that appear are stick figures, but don't let that fool you. The animation quality is still extremely high, and the creativity that Alan Becker uses is incredible. Everything takes place in the world of his computer, so icons, buttons, applications, and many other things are frequently used within the animation in ways that I can barely wrap my head around. It could be as simple as a character fighting with an eraser from an app to a character boxing with the different editing options in editing software. Really, things get pretty insane in this series. But anyway, the series starts off with Alan, series canon Alan, not real Alan that animated the series, kind of abusing his own animated stick figures and duking it out with his creations with his mouse cursor. They come to life in his screen, and we get to see super creative fight scenes with this. And over the course of the series, things get more and more complex as more stick figures come into play and end up going on adventures of their own. Alan learns from his abusive mistakes and befriends certain ones. Other ones become villains born out of Alan's early failures. It's all pretty complicated. As I said, I won't dive too deeply in all of the stuff that happens before episode 11, but long story short, all of his actions and the actions of his creations lead up to what happens in episode 10, which is pretty terrifying actually. Now, episode 11 acts as sort of a flashback episode. It gives us a backstory on Alan's first creation, one that he treated the most poorly and used as his little plaything for like a year. Suitably named The Victim, he suffered through torment and anguish for Alan's sadistic enjoyment. Episode 11 opens with us watching all of the awful things that Alan did to him. At first, we get to watch one of the cool fights that Alan has with the Victim, which I feel like I just have to show for a bit to do it justice. See what I mean when I say he gets super creative with this stuff? Anyway, after this fight, he straight up deletes the file that Victim is in, and we get a montage of Alan birthing, attacking, killing, and deleting Victim. It's actually super sad to watch, especially as we see Victim running for his life towards the end of the montage, slowly getting erased from existence and losing his limbs. The music on top of the scene makes it so much more intense too. After this, we cut to the future, where Alan births Victim one more time. This time though, he gets called to dinner before the havoc can begin, so he traps Victim in a box and leaves him on a computer while he goes to get his food. And can I just say that for this extremely short, unanimated scene, the cinematography is pretty good. The lighting is so perfect, especially since Alan decided to use a contrasting blue and orange to bring life to the shot. I see what you did there, man. It wasn't for long, but as a filmmaker myself, I can't help but appreciate this, no matter how short the shot is. Anyway, Victim breaks out of the box, building a rocket ship out of the pieces of the window that Alan left open, and this is what I mean by this series is creative as hell, by the way, because who the fuck thinks to write and animate this? And flies out of there and into the internet. It's so nostalgic watching him fly through all this shit we don't use anymore. This takes place in 2007, so he zooms past Skype and MySpace and Yahoo, things that some people of this generation probably don't even know existed. And yeah, I guess technically MySpace was actually before my time too, but like, it was around when I was a little kid, okay? I'm young, but I ain't a Gerber. Victim ends up crashing crash landing his ship right behind a monitor where someone is animating a woman dancing around outside. She uploads her Flash. Wait, Flash? Good God, I forgot all about fucking Flash, bro. But anyways, that upload gives the ship enough pressure to be sent back through the internet. We watch as a bunch of other creations are uploaded as well, all sent to Newgrounds? Bro, this animation is so nostalgic. I don't even know if Newgrounds is still a thing. I just did a quick Google search and it is in fact still a thing. So yeah, all these characters, Victim included, are sent away and land in a place called the Outer Net, which is essentially a place that exists parallel to the internet that the animations live in. In the process, Victim's crash landing both makes his color more gray and creates a bunch of connections across the Outer Net, one of which is connected to Alan's PC. This whole animated sequence is cool as fuck, by the way. Everything all around Victim as he flies around the internet looks awesome, especially when he crashes through the Outer Net and the whole burst of connections happen. You can tell that Alan and his team put a lot of work into animating this episode. Victim flies out of his ship after the crash and wipes the fuck out on the ground. The girl animation from earlier materializes near him and tries to help him up when she sees him. He flinches and braces himself, but the girl does nothing but extend her arm for him. I love that Victim's past trauma sticks with him here. Everything that Alan did to him is still fresh in his mind, so his first instinct is to protect himself from this unfamiliar person. This is such a human reaction. Alan really brings these simple stick figure characters to life so well. I can't help but feel bad for him as he sits there and waits to be abused once more. Once she helps him up, they go back to his ship where he finds a paintbrush. Not long after, he hears rustling in the distance, but because of the extremely dense fog in this area, he can't make out who's causing the noise. On edge, he wields the brush and prepares to defend himself. Then, out of the fog comes not one, but several mouse cursors, all creeping up to finish him off. He shivers and drops his brush in a panic. There are simply way too many to deal with. Alan has assembled an army just for him. He runs and hides behind the girl, who I guess I should probably say is named Mitzi or Mitzi. I'm not sure which. Praying that somehow she will be enough of a barrier between him and the monstrous creatures in front of him. The music here is intense and unsettling, occasionally adding these muffled drums that add to the confusion of the moment, almost like an auditory fog to go with the visual fog. But then the light finally shines through on the area, and we realize that the cursors were not cursors at all. The land around them is beautiful, and all of those monsters were simply other animations that got placed in the Outer Net. And man, everything about this place is beautiful. The colors are vibrant, and the neighborhood is like an old school farm area, and not everyone is a stick figure either. They're all different colors and clothed, and some of the characters have entirely different frame rates from one another, which I think is pretty cool. Like, Victim is clearly animated at a much higher frame rate than Mitzi and some of the other characters in this world. So while looking around this new place, Victim spots a completely destroyed windmill, which he recalls got obliterated when his ship crashed into it. So naturally, he feels obligated to fix it. And since the pieces to it are all over the place and completely useless, he decides instead to use his brush tool from earlier to draw up the parts needed for repair. The rest of the characters clap when they realize what they can do with this brush, and we watch as they rebuild. This little montage has some really pretty shots too, man. Just look at this one of the windmill in the sunset. Oh God, it's so pretty. When they're done, everyone huddles around Victim and praises him for his work. After this, we get a beautiful montage showing both the work that Victim and the gang do after fixing the windmill and of Victim just enjoying life, something he never had the opportunity to do before. In between though, we also see him hallucinate his demons, the cursor, in various places. He lays awake at night drawing himself living in fear of it, but thankfully, Mitzi is there to comfort him and help him push through it all. Their teamwork is the main reason he manages to power through his trauma, and the two of them start building up a little empire in their town based on making repairs and advancing the people living there. There's one really cool moment where the cursor is floating in a window just watching Victim, and Victim walks past it like it's not even there. He's officially gotten past his fear of it, and his brain doesn't even process its existence anymore. And the music alongside this montage is so pretty too. Everything feels so happy. So after the montage, we cut to 4 years after the initial crash. The gang is having a 4-year anniversary party, and everyone is having an amazing time, especially Victim, who's absolutely eating on the dance floor before Mitzi pulls him in close so they can dance together. But as they're dancing, we have random quick cuts to flames and this high-pitched squealing sound. And then, as soon as Victim lets go of Mitzi, she vanishes into thin air. Everyone around starts to follow suit. People start screaming in fear, waiting for their turn to be vaporized. twist, and Victim just stands there clutching Michi's party hat, confused, angry, and in pain. The way that this scene is done is so powerful. The buildup had me so emotional, so content, finally happy to see Victim happy, and then slowly, I had to watch as everything was just ripped away from him. His achievements, his new friends, his true love, all wiped out suddenly while we only briefly cut to their profile pictures burning to get a small idea of why it's happening. Watching Victim get over his trauma just to be thrown into a whole nother one just... it hurts so bad, man. So it turns out that these people weren't necessarily being vaporized, but sent straight to Newgrounds, where their files were being attacked and destroyed. And at Newgrounds, it is absolute chaos. Buildings are exploding, Flashes are running for their lives, everything is on fire, it's a mess. Flashes are literally just loading into hell. Some of the Flashes are fighting alongside the Newgrounds tanks to execute this unknown threat, but it doesn't seem to be enough. But the coolest thing about all of this mayhem is that it's not an unknown threat. We've actually seen this all happen before years ago, just from an entirely different perspective. Agent, one of the most important characters of this series, lands in this world after being transported like the rest of the Flashes and spots the culprits of this tragic event, the Chosen One and the Dark Lord. Now, if you don't know who these two are, I will very briefly explain. So after the Victim escaped long ago, Alan decided to make another Victim to battle, this time one much stronger than his first creation. This was the Chosen One. Alan makes the Dark Lord soon after, and that character's whole purpose was to take on and defeat the Chosen One, since his power was just a little too strong for Alan. This backfires though, as the two end up teaming up and escaping to wreak havoc on other worlds within the internet. And you can probably guess one of the worlds they attacked. Yep. Newgrounds. This happened many episodes ago in a very quick lingering image, but never would we have guessed that that rampage would have had any crazy impact in the future. The planning that must have gone into all of this is insane, man. Anyways, we watch as everyone struggles to make it out of this alive while an extremely dramatic score plays. Just before the big reveal of who's responsible for everything, Michi gets crushed by rubble and becomes trapped. Agent makes an attempt to save her, but not before she's completely obliterated by flames. I think the most frustrating thing about this scene is watching these two assholes high-five afterward like they didn't just murder a bunch of innocent people. Now, viewers of the series know that the Chosen One actually went through a pretty massive redemption arc after these events, but watching just how evil he really was before feels so awful. Like I said, we only saw small bits of the chaos that he created, but watching a whole episode of it feels so much worse. At some point, Agent manages to escape through a portal back to the outer net alongside some other Flashes. Victim is still there, obviously, since his Flash was not directly uploaded to Newgrounds, and he immediately puts Agent into a memory machine, where he and Agent relive everything that just went down. It is here that Victim learns what happened to the love of his life. Agent cries in the background, and Victim simply stares, bewildered and distraught. Right here begins his revenge path. We cut to the present day, or at least present as far as the overall series is concerned, a decade later, and Victim is sitting alone in a dark room. Agent enters and shows him footage of the Chosen One fighting alongside Alan's cursor. This was a fight that happened a few episodes back, an episode where the Chosen One's redemption arc first began. The two are fighting against the Dark Lord, as the Chosen One began to truly see the evil in him. The footage doesn't actually show who the cursor and the Chosen One were fighting, but I doubt it really would have made much difference. At the end of the day, both of these characters aren't good guys. Not in his eyes. They may have both been redeemed for us, but for him, all he sees is the two things that took every last bit of happiness he had from him. And the episode ends with Victim walking past a ton of newspapers and up to a board where he officially links the Chosen One and Alan's cursor. So that's Animation vs. Animator 11. Something that people have been wanting me to watch for a long time. And if it wasn't clear already, I really enjoyed this episode. It had a different energy compared to the ones that came prior to this, focusing on developing a character that we had long forgotten about. It was an emotional journey, and the music was absolutely beautiful. As always, the animation was astounding and extremely creatively done. I appreciate that this episode referenced so many moments in the past that we would have thought was irrelevant at the time. Seeing all of those moments get used in this future episode was honestly so sick, and all of the different layers of nostalgia for us old enough to remember everything from over 10 years ago was great. I was never bored watching this, and Alan Becker really killed it as usual. I'd also like to point out for the people that aren't familiar with this series, there is absolutely no dialogue. So all of the storytelling is done strictly through action, and yet you barely even notice. The characters don't even have faces, but posture and body language for fucking stick figures is enough to really show us how they feel. It's honestly pretty insane to think about. I really only have like one issue with this episode. Personally, I feel like the episode is just too short. While I do think the emotional message gets across decently well, I just feel like if we got to spend more time with Victim's new friends rather than having a time skip after a ton of tiny moments, it would have felt a bit more impactful. Don't get me wrong, I don't think the decision that was made was a bad one, but I think there could have been a stronger one, at least for me personally. But truly, I do think enough was shown to have me sympathize with Victim overall. So really, I just wish I got to see more of the bond developing between everyone, especially Victim and Mitzi. Because for me, as it stands, sure, it was a pretty sad moment to watch Victim's friends and partner die, but the emotional impact isn't as strong as it could have been because their tale is told through almost a slideshow. I sympathize for the guy, but I don't feel too hurt. That's kind of the only thing wrong with the episode for me. Otherwise, it's incredible storytelling all the way through, and it really gives us some insight on both what happened to Victim all those years ago and where he ended up. Great episode, and I'm glad Alan Becker is still cooking. 8 out of 10.